What's up, everybody? One Fun Guy podcast live in the studio. I'm waiting for Kelly to hop on. I just wanted to go over a few things for this weekend. I talked to Beth. I made a post. It's going to go up live tonight. She's going to be a guest on my One Fun Guy podcast on Saturday morning at 10 a.m. Me and Kelly are going to do the pod cult tonight in about 10 minutes. So I just wanted to give everybody the rundown, share it out, get everything prepped for when he gets on. That way we can just start the show right away. So I share it out. I get everybody on. If you're on, hop on and say hi. Be interactive tonight, guys. Our live podcast is going to be about female vocalist in heavy metal. We're going to give you some of our favorites, some of the bands that we like, some of the bands that are interesting with female vocals. So it's all going to be about the ladies tonight, guys. So we are just going to share this out real quick. I'm going to try to get some people on that are going to watch. Hopefully they hop on and it's a good time. I'm going to see who I can get. I'm going to send this separately and then I'm going to share it out. So if you guys are on, please say hi, introduce yourselves. If you guys know me, say what's up. That's the whole point of this thing, is to be interactive and to, kind of get this thing going. It's what we try to do. So if you're on, please say hi, and we'll have a fun night. So I'm just going to share it to as many people as I can, just so they see it. If they're on, that's awesome. If they're not, I know that some people have stuff going on, so I'm trying not to share it to the same people twice. But I am going to send it out to my OGs and the people that, try to hop on when they can. I try to send it out to everybody so that they see it. But I really try to get everybody interactive. Shannon, what's going on? So if you guys are on, say hi, say what's up. I'm trying to share it out, guys. Kelly's going to be on as soon as he gets here. We're going to have a fun show tonight. It's going to be super entertaining. I'm good. I'm just hanging in there. I'm getting my podcast, my guests lined up, so I've been busy with that. It's been fun, though. I've been good, just kind of hanging out and, working and doing this and, doing all the other stuff. So, I'm just trying to share it out now to get a head start on people who may or may not be on that might want to catch the show. So I'm just doing that now. I think that's everybody. But yeah, if you're on, you're my Lions won, right? Well, they're not my Lions. I don't want to say that, right? Because I am a Lions fan. I'm just starting to get to know the team and fall into the routine, right? Jennifer, what's up? Ellie, I think you're on. But I'm just trying to learn the team and get acclimated with them, right? I'm a Lions fan by default that the Bears suck. So, I mean, if you guys watched my last couple lives and followed me, you guys will know how much I basically despise the Chicago Bears. And I just don't like their team as a whole. And I don't want to spend any more of my time, money, or effort watching them. They're just terrible. They're a horrible organization, and I don't think they're deserving of my time or my money. Isabel, what's up? So at this point, I'm not a Bears fan anymore. So I've kind of adopted the Detroit Lions through my friend Rich. He sent me some Lions swag, and I just kind of, took them underneath my wing just because Chicago sucks. And I don't think they're deserving of my time or my money. And I am not going to support a team that doesn't want to put the best effort forward. And it's kind of one of those things, where we're Cubs fans and they were kind of deemed the lovable losers because they were awful for so many years. And the Sox really haven't been good since the 05 fluke. And the Bulls really haven't been good since the Jordan era. I mean, so Chicago teams should be competing for championships every year, and they're not. And so I don't want to support teams that aren't going to put their best effort forward. And quite frankly, they're not deserving of my money or my time. So I am no longer interested in Chicago sports. They're just not. They've proven that they don't want to compete. The Blackhawks were our last winning team. they made some moves. I'm not going to fault them, but I'm not going to support teams that don't care about their fans and don't want to put their best effort forward. And again, Chicago fans are stupid. You know, we're not like Buffalo fans, or we're not like Oakland fans, and we're not like, when our teams suck, we still go and we still support, we still spend money, we still watch them. When other teams suck, their fans stop watching them. We're just idiots. And I'm not going to do it anymore. So that's kind of my rant on the Lions thing. But I'm just waiting for Kelly to hop on, guys. Like I said earlier, Beth is going to be my guest on my podcast this week. That's going to be awesome. She is absolutely fantastic. So I'm super excited to have her on and to be a part of this whole thing. She's just a really incredible human being. And, she's had a hard struggle with things, but what a incredible spirit, and what she does. She is just incredibly awesome. So I can't, thank Beth enough for walking us through her journey and sharing her story with us. And I mean, she is just an absolutely incredible human being. And I can't get over just how amazing she is. So, her story and her perseverance, I mean, it really kind of, is a testament to the human spirit and life. She's just incredible. If you haven't watched my podcast before, she is on TikTok. She goes by Brain Damage Beth. She had brain cancer. She went in, she was getting headaches, and she got dizzy, and they basically told her she had a tumor, and if they didn't remove it, she was going to die. So they basically did brain surgery within the first weekend she was in the hospital, and she's basically lived to tell the story. Like I said, she's just an incredible human being, and I can't get over it. So I'm super stoked to have her. I've gotten to meet her family through her story. So her mom's actually going to join us on Saturday. So that's going to be awesome. That's going to be Lay, what's going on? So she's incredible. If you guys haven't checked her out, guys, go to my YouTube channel, One Fun Guy Podcast. Look for Beth. I've done 2 episodes with her now. This Saturday is going to be the 3rd. She's just an incredible human being, guys. Her story is awesome. And Sylvia, what's up? Ellie, what's up? You guys are all hopping in on me. Thank you guys all for liking and sharing the show, guys. It means the world to me. I really appreciate it, guys. You guys are such an incredible group. I love you all. So thank you for being a part of this and going from there. So I'm just sending out a message real quick to Kelly to get him on, to let him know, and we're going to go from there. So I'm just sending this out real quick, and we're going to go from there. Thank you guys for the gifts. You don't have to. I love the fact that you guys send them, but really, you don't have to. I'm gonna just type this out real quick, and then I'm on. I'm not ignoring you guys. So thank you guys again for hopping on. Thank you guys for being a part of this. Thank you for being a part of the One Fun Guy podcast and the pod called. Thank you guys for supporting me and Kelly. And we're trying to live this amazing life that we want to create for ourselves, guys. Me and Kelly have this kind of pipe dream. If you guys aren't used to us or haven't you seen it, Shirt Daddy, what's going on? If you guys haven't seen us before, we're trying to make it big, guys, right? Like, our goal is to be a tag team podcast where we actually have famous musicians and guests on. We're trying to support and grow our channels, guys. Obviously, we're using the One Fun Guy platform because of the community I've built. And I want Kelly and myself to have our own community, but we're kind of stuck in the mix. And I've talked to a few people, and I hope TikTok doesn't go away, guys, that in January we're still here. But please, guys, if you are making friends on TikTok and you have a community with people and you interact with them, find another social media platform where you can befriend them on, because if TikTok goes away, you still want that community. I have my friends that I've made on here. I want to keep them and I don't want to lose them. So give them an email, give them, Kevin, what's up? Give them, a chance to be friends outside of this. Because if we wake up January 16th and TikTok is gone and we can't log on and the United States doesn't want to be a part of this anymore, how are you going to find the people in your community, right? So give them your email. If you don't feel comfortable with that, create a fake one. Go to Gmail and do 1234@gmail.com. Just be prepared in case it's not here. That's all I'm going to say about that, guys. I've built a huge community on TikTok. It's been awesome. But just prepare for the worst in case we're not a part of this anymore. Me and Kelly will have to go on Instagram or on a different platform if it goes away in January. So hopefully it doesn't. But if it does, all I'm saying is be prepared.
True that.
That's it. So
but business as usual until then.
That's it, right? Just the community keeps growing. The fan base keeps growing. If you guys follow me and you don't follow Kelly, guys, follow him. He's definitely worth a follow. He's got great content. He posts awesome videos. He's an awesome musician. He does a really cool live when he's not with me. I always try to hop on it when I can. I know he was live last night, but I was super busy and I couldn't get around to it. But, follow him as well, guys. He's amazing.
Thanks a lot. Yeah, and the same for folks that might be following me that are on here. Follow Mark, One Fun Guy podcast. Really interesting people that he chooses for his lives and people telling their stories and their journeys, and it's really super awesome to see.
Look at that Christmas tree! Boom! That was
Merry
Ellie.
Christmas, everybody.
That was Secret Tree. She's epic. That was awesome. Thanks, Ellie. You guys are great sending gifts. You guys don't really have to do that, but we love it. We really appreciate it from our heart. We love it. Thank you, guys.
Yeah,
Juicy, what's going on?
Thank you so much. And it helps pay for all the shows that are coming up.
Right. It helps for something, right?
But yeah, no, I was live last night. Too bad he couldn't make it, but that's okay. Yeah, no, and it was on the topic that we were supposed to talk about today, which is female metal. Mostly because it's more prolific, female fronted, female vocalist metal.
Yeah,
it was cool. There are so many bands, right? It's definitely. I'm not calling out a problem that is getting worse or whatever, right? It's definitely getting better, but that's also why I feel like it needs even more encouragement.
And the thing is that we can look back all the way until the early punk scene, right? You can look back all the way to Debbie Harry, and you can look back, beyond the realm of like metal and start going into the punk and into the hard rock movement of the 70s and 80s. But I think through the 80s and 90s, right, you had more of the female bands and female fronted bands, especially if they weren't all female, really were poppy bands, right? Like you had the Bangles, even Vixen, right? For as hard rock as Vixen were, they were like the sexy band, right? Like they were the hot chicks that played music. I don't think they ever got the credit they deserved as musicians because they were phenomenal. They were just the girls, right? Like they were the girl band and they weren't really, and again, you look at Joan Jett and Pat Benatar and all these other females that were fronting their own bands at the time. I mean, look at the Runaways, right? Like they were awesome, right? Old school punk didn't catch on, goes more poppy, it hits, right? So in the rock and roll thing. But I don't remember a female heavy metal band really coming into their own until Kitty. They were the first one I really think that were kind of on the scene where you had 4 females who were playing death metal.
Yeah. I know of a band in Sweden way back in the day, in the early days, called Der Keda. Mm-hmm. That was all female playing death, and they were awesome, right?
I'll let you finish.
Yeah, no, but the point is that I think up until now is when it's starting to get normalized, and
Yeah.
it's starting to, and I think that it should be. Like you said, it's been proven in punk rock and other extreme forms of music that women can knock the socks off male bands if they if they're given the chance and visibility.
Absolutely. They
I mean, 70s and 80s, there was definitely a more misogynist type of culture globally than now, which is
sure.
It's better now. But
Yeah.
the point I'm trying to make is that I am not calling this out to as a novelty, right? That's not at all what I'm saying. It's not like we should pay attention to.
Not at all.
Oh, this is a female band at all. It's more like there is an imbalance, and we have now so much proof that imbalance is uncalled for, and traditionally, unfortunately, in culture, it is a little bit scary, or at least a hesitation for many females to get involved with something that is truly male dominated. Like, it's a little bit scary to for them to get involved, which is more like, no, women specifically. And this is why I'm saying specifically women. It's like, we are an equal opportunity culture, right?
And deservedly so. And you know what? Your favorite genre had more females involved with it for longer than any other type of music. The industrial scene with Duran Gray way back in the 80s, right? They had a female singer. You had a lot of industrial bands that were female fronted or female led, right? Where you had a main guitarist and a singer that were female, right? The bassist might have been a guy, or the drummer might have been a guy, but for the most part, they've been in the industrial scene a lot longer.
Yeah, and I mean, to extend that too, like that was also when it started to be all right, at least for the rebellious people, to have the whole cross gender thing. So let's not just say like female. That also includes people that identify as females, right? So let's just make that clear, that it's not not that. But the novelty is wearing off. Women are kicking so much ass. But Kitty, was probably the first. I agree with you, for the first metal, like extreme metal band that got any sort of notoriety. And then when we look at today, I mean, Poppy is huge, right? And what a year she's had. I mean, with Knocked Loose and being played everywhere and all that stuff.
Yeah,
right?
And she actually has. I mean, I don't know if you noticed, but she had a hard rock album that she put out where she actually wore corpse paint. Have you seen that?
No, I haven't seen that. So, but I know that she has very dramatic makeup on. But that's another thing. There's like
hold on, let me show you this, because this is how I found her. I was on an Apple Music playlist, and I came across all these different bands that were on there, and it was heavy bands, like really, really heavy bands. And all of a sudden, I come across this picture.
There you go.
And it's Poppy.
I haven't seen that one.
Yeah. And so I was like, whoa, what's this? So the first song I listened to was cheesy, right? It was poppy, it was punky, it was kind of like not really metal, right? And so I'm kind of like, all right, this is weird, but it's okay. By the third song, it was heavy, like really, really heavy. And I've started listening to like her past stuff where like you can see the change in her, where like she's gone from industrial to metal to black metal to screamo. So she mixes it up, right? She's kind of got that little bit of it. And I know that there's bands now like Spirit Box and Ginger where they had one, but I kind of want to give props to like the OGs, right? Like OTEP. OTEP's been around for years, right? She was like the first really band that was like heavy metal, and going all the way back to my picture with Angela, right? When Angela Gassow hit Arch Enemy, and she was like the first female that was like doing the death metal growls at the capacity she was doing, was unheard of in music at that time.
Yeah, and I have to be completely transparent. I had not heard of OTEP before I sort of raised this topic. But she actually, I posted, the same thing, about, what's your favorite female vocal metal band, and OTEP herself responded to it. So it's like,
Yeah.
oh shit, a lot of people are saying OTEP. So it's just like, okay, I gotta check this out, and
Yeah.
it's really amazing. She's been at it for 20 plus years.
Yeah, she's been great. And again, one of my favorite bands in the world, and has been for a very, very long time, since the late 80s and early 90s, has been Nightwish. And Tarja was one of the few female vocalists that was very operatic, but their music was super hard. And they have a song called I Wish I Had an Angel, which is one of the heavier songs that Nightwish has ever done. And her vocals on that with Marco's screaming is a perfect mix of metal. And I've known recently, I've mentioned it before, that a lot of these black metal bands now are starting to toy with female vocalists. Cradle of Filth is one that comes to mind. They've had a female in their band now since the mid 2000s. I think it was 2006. It was like Dusk and Her Embrace, where they started introducing the female opera singers behind Danny's screaming, or whatever you call what he does. I know a lot of people hate his voice and a lot of people like it, but irregardless of that, they've introduced the female in their band in black metal long before a lot of these newer bands have even come across that. So I give credit where credit's due, right? Whether you like Cradle of Filth or whether you hate them, they started introducing females into black metal long before any other band had done it.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely true. And I also noticed that there's been a few years of a gap. Like, yeah, no, I mean Kitty and OTEP and those folks, right? But back in the grunge days, there were a lot of female bands coming out then too. That got a lot of attention. So
I mean, Courtney Love.
So just
Give her credit where credit's
seemed like
due, right?
it dipped after the death of grunge, if you will, right?
I mean,
There
look
was
at Hole,
L7,
right?
there was Hole, there was
Yeah.
Basic Chainsaw, there were,
And L7 was
a
great,
bunch of
right? A lot of
Yeah.
people look past L7. They were a fantastic band.
Yeah, but I think maybe for whatever reason, it seems like females have a little bit more of a melodic sense, and have had a hard time to transition into the Tom Araya getting started with all the screaming and that sort of thing. That maybe that has been more intimidating, because I guess maybe gender roles. Females are supposed to have sing-songy melodies, and I mean Evanescence and all that, right? Where it's like pretty vocals on top of heavy music. That makes sense.
And I mean, look at Delane, right? She's been doing it for 40 years, right? She's like the OG of like prog rock female singer, right? Delane's been doing it for forever. She's like the original one. But all those other bands that were in Europe that we never even heard about in the United States have had female fronted singers for a very long time. And the United States kind of is on the back burner now because it's more popular to have that in music now, right? But the older females have been really doing it for a while.
Lai, who's echoing?
I don't
Is
know.
it one of us or both of us, or what's going on? Hopefully there's nothing wrong. To me, it sounds all right.
I think maybe it's me.
Anyway, thanks, Ali, for the hand heart. By the way, also so much. Oh, Mark, you're echoing. Huh. Oh, he was. Oh well.
I don't know.
Okay. Yeah. No. Where were we? I got sidetracked.
So you were basically mentioning the female fronted singers, and I think we were talking about how in modern music the machismo is kind of spread out now, where females
Right.
are basically getting more recognition, and female fronted bands especially is now kind of like the cool thing.
Yeah. So, but again, I mentioned the grunge thing where there was a gap. They were well on the way to have female bands, but then grunge died, and it didn't continue
Right,
from
right.
that. Other than going back to being a novelty. I mean, even kind of sort of in the punk days, but it was still like, yeah, no, this aggression and displeasure is not a gender specific thing, but it just seems like it's a very male thing to act it out in
Yeah.
with this sort of music. But as soon as, women were angry enough and they got in the bands, we had like X-Ray Specs and Susie and the Banshees and Blondie was more art rock, not so much uh, punk in the sense of
Sure.
angry British bands or whatever, right? Um, and maybe that is something that it's taken this long for
Ellie, thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Oh, thank you. Yeah,
He's rocking the gifts.
yeah.
All the hearts are right up here.
Yeah, I see that. I'm jealous. You're getting a whole lot of hearts here, Mark.
She's awesome.
I'm kidding.
Ellie's
the
totally
ladies'
epic. She's a rock star.
uh, 100 of them. That's awesome. Um, anyway, so maybe it's just been a hurdle to get over, to get across, to be like, yeah, no, it is actually not gender specific,
Yeah.
and um, I keep mentioning this band called Homoiousios. It's a weird name, but that was on a live where the drummer came on my live and said, "Hey, can you check us out?" And it was really odd because there was an opera singer, like a soprano type vocal.
Now you're
Thank
getting
you. I'm
them.
getting hearts too. Thank you, Ali. You're awesome. But the weird thing was that it was a guy singing kind of like soprano opera vocals, and then a female that was doing the growling, in that on the heavy parts. That was freaking amazing.
And that's kind of how Lacuna Coil is, right? Because
that's
they
true.
kind of go back and forth, right? Dario has the kind of like more heavier voice, but there are times when Christina really kind of gets into the growls. So I think it's just it's a unique thing. And I wonder if a lot of bands now are more open to the fact of having singers that are female or musicians that are, because I remember when Rob Zombie came out with White Zombie and Sean Youngsalt was the bassist, and they caught a lot of flack for having a female bassist, and it wasn't, she was awesome, right? She handled it well. She handled all the machoism very well. She handled all the sexist remarks very well. She was always very on top of her game when it came to that. But she was a fantastic bassist, right? And she was the really the driving force behind the band. She had all the sex appeal.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's true. And I mean, I don't think that it's wrong to call out the sex appeal either, because I think that a lot of the metal thing has a certain kind of sex appeal. There's something attractive by being that male or whatever, the warrior, whatever, to some extent. So I don't think that it's wrong to call out the fact that women also bring a sex appeal.
Oh no, not at all.
In their own way, and it shouldn't be a male sex appeal at all, right? I went to see friends of mine by Carbon 13. They play kind of industrial synthwavy type stuff. They were opening for Comic Christ, but there was a band in between called Antania, and I'm on my phone right now, so I can't pull up a picture. But there was a growling female vocalist, stunning, very good looking, but she had a very bald head, had a veil in front of her eyes, but I saw her, walking around a small place called Livewire here in town. But she was standing there wailing, and she looked like a Bene Gesserit type of persona. And man, that was good. It was next to this big guy, like this big, mountain of a man with a goat skull on his face, doing the DJing or whatever, playing the backing track type stuff. But that was a really cool experience. And
Yeah.
you know, she was female all the way, but she screamed like you would expect a black metal singer to scream.
Right.
It sounded like a black metal vocalist, and it was great. It was amazing. So you know, bringing that femininity into it
Yeah.
while still keeping all the spirit of the metal, you know,
So I'll tell you.
it just does not get diminished at all.
So I'll tell you a funny story about a woman-fronted band that kind of shocked me. But it was 2003 Ozfest, and there was a band called Wicked Wisdom, and it was Will Smith's wife, Jada Pinkett, was the singer,
Oh, really?
and it was
Huh.
fantastic. It was really cool because like Will Smith was there in Chicago. I don't know if he was filming a movie or whatnot, but he was on the side of the stage. And it was kind of weird because you have this hip hop guy, and all of a sudden it was like his wife was the star of the show. And she did really good. It was really, they were very good. I don't know if their band still exists. I don't know if it was just a gimmick, but I liked it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. And you know, and obviously she was the star of the show. And
She was.
you know, I know that he's been getting some flack of being an a-hole or whatever in the last few years, but at some level of fame, I think that's inevitable. Anyway, but yeah. So if we go back to, I mean, the Runaways, obviously, right? You know,
Right.
they didn't care so much about sex appeal, right?
No.
You know, they didn't. They were just rocking as hard as they possibly could, right? But you know, Joan Jett has kept doing that, and you know, she's hot for not
Yeah,
even trying. And was Lita Ford? Was she a member of?
Yeah.
Runaways?
So
Yeah. So she was another one of those that sort of like
think-
became a you know, the boy room poster. I like metal, but I also like girls, and here's a
Yeah,
metal
yeah.
girl, and that's hot, you know. Same thing with Doro Pesh, or you know, some of those, right? I want to single out Girl School as one of those that were really rocking, you know, like they focus more on that than the sex appeal part of it. The novelty of being, will be the, you know, novelty hot chick band in the middle of the sausage fest, right? They could really freaking play and rock really hard, and didn't seem to focus so much on showing their body parts.
Power on.
Which some
The Bluetooth device is
do a
ready.
little bit more than. Now I lost you altogether. Now there's no sound at all. Yeah, lost your sound. Can't hear you.
Run out.
Very, very quiet.
I tried to connect the Bluetooth.
Oh, is that the echo that?
I don't know. I don't think so.
Yeah. No, it's kind of muddled and low volume here.
I plugged my mic in, so I don't know if it's.
Oh,
I had my mic in before.
yeah, I can barely hear you. I'm sorry.
Can everybody else hear me, or just better words? Now it's echoing. Am I good now?
Now it sounds better.
All right. I'm just trying to plug my mic in.
Yeah, now it
I
sounds
went
good
to the
again.
Bluetooth speaker instead to see if it was any better.
Yeah, no, now it sounds good again.
All right.
Hey, Max, are you my buddy? I got a Max that subscribed to my channel the other day, so
Awesome.
I was thinking that maybe this would be the Max. I don't know.
Well, hopefully it is.
Yeah, that would be cool. But yeah, so you started talking when I started to talk about Lita Ford, so you had a bit of a thought there, I think.
So the Lita Ford thing, I think, is unique because she was the perfect like storm of the person who could be the front of like 80s rock, right? Because you had Lita Ford and Vixen were like the two, right? But Lita Ford, when she teamed up with Ozzy, she started going with Motorhead, and like she started going with all these other bands where she was doing duets or being guest spots on their albums. And I think that's where like she was very smart, because at least she was able to attach herself to famous rock stars.
Yeah, and the fact was that she had been in the Runaways too, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, which highly respected. Maybe not everybody knows about the Runaways so much, right? But my gosh, could they freaking rock? It was like a good mix between heavy rock and punk rock too, right? I mean, Cherry Bomb is the one hit wonder thing, but listen to their records. Like they're
Great.
they're good.
Yeah.
You know, so don't dismiss them as a one hit wonder thing or the movie band, right? So but yeah, what else, what other band? I hear the name Arch Enemy a lot now as being a super huge, and they are also the sort of the growly, actual super metal.
Right now, Arch Enemy has Alyssa Blues White, who's their current singer. Angela was their second singer. Arch Enemy had a male vocalist for the first two records, and I don't know if he split or if he just wanted to do something different, and they were looking for a singer, and they went with Angela Gassow, and she's a German singer. I don't know if she tried out or where they heard her from or how she even got hooked up with the band. But they put out an album with her singing, and it took off. It was incredibly heavy, incredibly hard, and she was doing death. You couldn't tell it wasn't a girl. It sounded like a guy, right? Her vocals were that heavy. And I remember when I saw her at Milwaukee Metal Fest, that was either 2002 or 2003, when I actually got to meet them, Arch Enemy as a band, where that picture was where I posted, right? When we met her, they were just totally down to earth, right? They were just a cool band. And there was another band there that was super awesome that I really like, and they didn't really get a lot of notoriety in the States, but their band was called Darkane. And Darkane was super awesome.
Oh yeah, Darkane, yeah.
Yeah, and so Darkane and Arch Enemy were like the co-headliners of that Milwaukee Metal Fest. So all the other bands that were there, Immortal and Cataclysm and Mortician, and I mean, I can't think of the amount of bands. There must have been 25 bands throughout the course of the weekend. But Darkane and Arch Enemy were the big two. And they were awesome. They totally killed it. And when I met them, they were just really, really, really down to earth. They were just a cool band. They took pictures with everybody. Angela was signing stuff. And it was the first time that I remember in a very, very long time that a female had that kind of voice and that kind of presence on stage, where she could hang with any dude. Any singer that night, that weekend, she'd have been just as good or better than any male vocalist there. And there were a lot of heavy bands there. There were a lot of like really popular metal bands. I think Suffocation was there. I think Malignancy was there. Deeds of Flesh was there. Immolation was there. There were a lot of big, famous heavy metal bands, and they were unbelievably awesome. And I think that just because she was so down to earth and cool with all the guys and girl fans, right, that were there, and it just meant something to me, right? Like when we took the picture with them, they were totally awesome about it. They had us come around back because the table was there, and everybody else, they were just kind of like leaning back into the pictures, and they told us to like, no, come around. And we went around, we got to take a pic. Like it was, they were just, it was cool. They were like the rock stars that like you want every rock star to be, like shaking hands, down to earth, signing everything. They were just totally cool, and I'll never forget that experience. And that's was an Arch Enemy fan ever since then. And it even got me into their older albums, where it was like the ones before Angela, right? Because like I said, they had 2 albums with a male singer. They had 4 records with Angela, and then when Angela, her voice kind of started going, so she said, well, I love the band, can I be your tour manager and your band manager? And they said yes. So now she manages the band, and Alyssa Glues White is now their singer. So she's still involved in the band. She's just not singing.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that was often the comment that I got too when people were listening is like, Arch Enemy with Angela. It's kind of specific that was sort of a prime period for sure.
Because they were in that realm of like, Kitty had already happened at that point. I think Kitty was 97, 96 or 97.
They've been around for a while.
And I think Angela was like right around that. She was like 98, 99, somewhere in there, where she had started singing with Arch Enemy. But she was the first one where, Kitty had a very, very hard sound to them. But, when you look at, like, if you listen to a Kitty album, it's hard, right? Like, that's hard rock, maybe bordering like heavy metal, but like Arch Enemy is death metal. There's no doubt about it. They are heavy and fast and loud. And Angela was kind of that voice. So out of all the other prog metal bands, right? Like the four bands I had mentioned, like Nightwish and Delane and what's the one with Simone Simmons? Epica. Right? Those bands were like, they're not death metal bands by any stretch. They're hard rock and heavy metal, right? Nightwish is a heavy band, but they're not doing the death metal vocals. They have a hard singer and an opera singer. But Angela was the first one I remember where like she growled better than most guys. She could hang with any death metal singer on the planet. And if she wasn't as good, she was better. And I think that's why their notoriety with like a female fronted band, I don't want to say obviously she wasn't the first, but she was the first good one. The first one where you were like, wow, her power and her voice is unmatchable. And not to take anything away from Kitty or OTEP or all these, bands that were around, but Angela in a death metal band, when you listen to Arch Enemy, it is a different sound. It's a heavier, in your face type of sound, and nobody could compete with that. Angela was, all the other people were here and Angela was here. She was just awesome. She was that much better than everybody else.
Yeah. So that's so great when that happens, right? It sounds so trite and so demeaning in a way, but it's like, it's that moment where it's like, no, you women, you can do this too.
Yeah.
There's no other reason than cultural hesitations or whatever now to if you like metal, you want to be in a metal band, you can totally join a metal band. Everybody knows that it can be done now, so that glass ceiling has been broken. So
and that's the thing, right? When you look at all of the female artists, like I said, not so much in heavy metal, but in the industrial movement, right? NS, KMFDM, you had all these bands that had females in the band, if not singing. And long before heavy metal, right? Like the industrial scene, these bands were in the early 90s, late 80s, that they had females in the thing. And that movement just kind of went to the wayside, right? I mean, I remember when Lords of Acid came out, they were awesome. That's mid 80s, right? That's 87, 88. They had a female, two females, one sang and the other one played keyboards in the synth. They've had females in that band since the early 80s. And they always kind of get passed up. But I mean, like, Lords of Acid were like an industrial icon, and they've had females in their band since the beginning.
Yeah. No, absolutely. So it goes for all instruments, right? Like there are great examples of great drummers, great guitarists, great singers, for whatever reason, it seems like it was easier to get a female to play bass with your band. I don't know why. That seemed to be, the least novel thing to have a female member.
And the thing is too, I'm going to go old school, but I would even attribute bands like the Mamas and Papas to like having females in the band, right? Mama Cass and all these powerful females in those bands that were, in male dominated, genres, when you had bands like that, right? And a lot of the older female artists that kind of just went unrecognized because it wasn't popular, because managers and booking agents and record company execs didn't think it was the cool thing to do at the time, right? And that's going all the way back to Ella Fitzgerald, right? And artists that could really sing and were super talented, but the guys were the top draws. They were in here, right? So when you have Aretha Franklin coming on the scene who can sing like nobody else, but she's not getting the notoriety she deserved at the beginning, right? It took her many years to become the Aretha Franklin that everybody knew and loved. She was buried by the record execs because they said it's not popular. You're not going to sell tickets. You're not going to go on. No one's going to watch you sing. She proved them wrong, but that was the mentality of the record executives at the time, right? Which were pretty much old white guys that were out of touch and didn't really have that kind of thing. It wasn't until Motown came around where they started introducing females into the music, right? And it took really the black culture to do that, right?
Yeah, this is true. Like so many other times, right?
So
although metal is very, very white, unfortunately.
Sure.
So,
And I get that, right?
that's the next thing to get into is like, hey, obviously lots of cultures, but for whatever reason, African American culture doesn't seem to have embraced metal as much. But different topic for a different day.
Yeah. But I think
to that point, what you were saying too, like it's not until now that people are starting to realize that Karen Carpenter was a fantastic drummer, right? Why was that suppressed? Because people are saying now that people that heard her play drums was like, she's the best drummer on the planet.
Mm-hmm.
Like she's on, and there's only a video to her or two of her doing that, but it's unbelievable. So yeah, a lot of suppression has been happening actively as well. Yeah. And that's why I think also, when we're talking about the punk rock stuff, right, which was more of an independent movement, that then executives
and that's the thing that most people don't understand about the punk rock movement, because a lot of people don't understand the subculture that was punk rock, right? They were the anti-music. They were the first independent bands, right? They said, we don't need a label, we don't need managers, we don't need tours, we just need 4 or 3 guys that can play hard, fast, and loud, and we will dominate a garage. We will dominate a stage. We will dominate a high school. We will dominate. They didn't want that press, right? It fell upon them, right? When the Sex Pistols started getting into that kind of, people started recognizing like, what's going on here? Why is this band so popular, right? But they didn't go out there to be rock stars. They went out there because no one else would sign them. And they said, you know what? We don't want a record deal. We'll do it on our own. We don't need one.
Yeah. I mean, the moment they signed with the record label was their downfall, because that's when they changed from being a punk rock band to being basically a boy band, right? It was very much constructed at that point.
And they were merchandised, right?
They managed to get in this.
It was the image for them.
Yeah, it was the image, and the bass player that wrote most of the songs got the boot because Sid Vicious was more photogenic or more of a news magnet or whatever, right? But I mean, you still have to give them some credit though, because I mean they were on EMI, and then they write the song EMI, which is totally bashing their own record label.
I give them, I give them credit for starting the idea that you don't have to chase a record deal to be popular or famous.
Exactly.
And that was kind of their thing. They were anti-establishment from the get-go. And when nobody would sign them, they weren't chasing down record deals, right? Like, again, I know you're not a fan of the Doors, but the Doors chased a record deal. That's all they wanted, was to get into studio and record. Yeah. And they were doing everything they could to get that record deal. And the Sex Pistols were like, you know what? We're going to stop begging you. If you don't like us, we're not going to beg you to get into a studio and record. We'll do it on our own. So they created their own studio, their own demos, and they went on their own. And when the record label started coming to them, they said, no, you didn't want to sign us 5 years ago. We didn't do anything different now other than the fact that we were popular ourselves. We made ourselves famous.
Yeah. No, very, very true. And so I think it's a little bit that mentality, not to get too deep into it, but I think that's also why, I never, I never really got into the traditional heavy metal so much because that was very much the same thing too. Like yes, it was an underground thing, but they all wanted the record contract, right? That was what they were chasing, right?
And so the thing is funny about that is that we all kind of know the history of how that started with Metal Blade, right? Because Metal Blade put out that compilation, and everybody who was on it, Metal Blade said these are the top 10 tapes, because you mentioned tape trading all the time, right?
Yeah.
Out of all the tapes that were being traded in that time, Sepultura, Metallica, Morbid Angel, Exodus, Testament, Dark Angel,
Death Angel probably.
or Death Angel, yeah. And I can't remember. And there was some weird punky band that was on that because their tape managed to get in that mix, right? But that was kind of the start of like who's who in the tape trading business, because those were the top 10 tapes that were being traded when Metal Blade said, submit a tape to us and we're going to pick the ones that get the most likes or the most sent in. And that's how they did it. And that's how, and it was that whole Bay Area scene that was dominating it. That's why they were all on it.
Yeah. Let's bring that up too to all the budding bands of today, thinking that I don't want to get on TikTok, do that. Tape trading was the TikTok of the day. So sorry, like
it's self-marketing.
They got the attention because they were the most traded.
You
they
are
managed
1,000% correct. Tape trading was marketing by yourself, right? You'd go home and you'd make one demo and you'd record 20 of them. You'd go to Kmart and you'd buy the 10 packs and you'd make the one song and you'd start throwing it around. And then people would take that tape and record it themselves. And by the time somebody got it, it was the 10th time it had been dubbed over because that person recorded it and gave it. And so that's how it was. That's how it started. And that was, tape trading back in the day was the, modern CD, right? That was the modern digital download, was going to a concert and seeing how many people had tapes that were there. And you would just take one and you would take it and you would listen to it and you'd pass it on, right? And the insert might have had a handwritten thing of 3 or 4 other bands that were like, if you like this, check these guys out.
Yeah, too. And there was always a mailing address, so if someone wanted to just, write a letter, sometimes even a phone number. I am Dragon.
That was it, right? That was Ellie. That was nothing. That was awesome. That might have been the best one yet.
Ellie's the most entertaining part of this podcast.
She is fantastic.
Let's just face it.
She's an incredible human being.
Back,
She is
Kai, by the way.
fantastic.
I'm glad the hopping in the shower didn't make you slip or anything, so I'm glad you're safe. But what I was going to say, to tie it back into the original topic, right, is that, and we mentioned Darketa earlier and other smaller bands that with females, that could do it. That sounded really awesome, right? But it's been in the underground for a long time.
Right.
Just never bubbled up to the surface, right? So it's yet another example of that it's, it's never been, it can't be done. It's just that it never bubbled up to the surface enough for people to stand up and take notice, especially, in a, I wouldn't call poppy mainstream, like if you talk to grandma, she won't know who poppy is, right? But still, it's taken that long for things to bubble up but it comes from a very solid, long tradition in the underground.
The one cool thing about Poppy that I will say this is that probably the metalheads despise her. But how many people went and watched Jimmy Kimmel because Knocked Loose was going to be with her?
Right.
And she brought all these eyes from the pop scene to the metal bands, right? And I know we mentioned it. Diane, what's going on?
Hi, Diane.
And we mentioned that earlier, right, with Gojira when they did the Olympics. They were on a worldwide scene. And Poppy can bring that pop element to metal because metal's not going to go and find the pop fans. They're just not, right? You have to be a Blink 182 or a Green Day to get into that pop culture because the hardcore metalheads aren't going to go into that subgenre. But the pop people will be brought over to the metal because of her.
Yeah, I mean, gateways are all good, right?
I
You
get
know,
it.
and then you get into it, and then you start to listen to Arch Enemy, or you start listening to Crypta, or you start listening to all these other.
Mhm.
I actually never really listened to Crypta. I had a quick thing, so I might be mistaken.
No,
here,
Crypta's good,
but
and so is Burning Witches. If you haven't heard of Burning Witches, they're very good.
yeah, I've with how many bands that were listed as comments to my posts, it's like too much to keep up with, and in the short amount of time when I've tried to dig into it, I just don't remember who sounded like what. Because I would say that there's almost a 50-50 split between the melodic, symphonic, female fronted bands as there are, the heavier ones.
Right, and then you get,
and that might be a reflection on, the people that follow me or whatever, right?
Right, and like I said, now you have, somebody mentioned it earlier within this moment, right? Maria Brinks is super cute. Look at that. Someone got the lips.
Thank you, Ali.
But that's the thing, right? In this moment, had Maria Brinks, right? She's very attractive, but she could sing, so she kind of has that kind of, gift. You get drawn to her, right? But like I said, you look at Ginger, you look at Spirit Fox, you look at a lot of these female. I mean, look at Linkin Park, what they did. We talked about it before, right? They went and got a female vocalist. Now, I'm not saying it was the right move, but it's obviously bringing eyes to them, right? Like it's putting eyes on the band that might not have been seen before, right? So I think it's just one of these weird kind of things that eclectically they might be doing it to get a different fan base to get eyes on them. I'm not saying it's the right move, but it's a move. And I think it was very calculated and thought out that they did that. I don't think it was by design that they said, oh, well, out of all the singers that we can get, let's pick the female, right? I think there was a little bit of kind of like really type of, subconsciously saying that there's some intuition that if we get a female singer, we might get this draw. And I think it might work. Now, Linkin Park didn't need it though, right? Linkin Park was a huge band before. They were arguably one of the biggest bands on the planet. So they didn't need that. But I think to get a new set of fans interested in Linkin Park, it was a very bold move, but I think it was calculated.
Yeah, I agree with you that it was calculated. And now, looking back, because we're a few months down the line after when it was announced, right? The dust has settled. They are headlining festivals, so there hasn't been a backlash as in, no, you guys are, back in the basement now, like you've lost everything, right? Did not happen, right? But I'm sure that it was calculated. I think that, and I think that it's been a long time coming. Like, the even though we're talking about it today, doesn't mean that Poppy wasn't popular 6 months ago or whatever, right?
Sure. No.
So, the trend has been going upwards, and let's face it, Linkin Park are that caliber of band that definitely relies on marketing and, feeding on trends and that sort of thing. So I'm with you that it was probably a calculated decision to hopefully tap into maybe the female vocal thing is pretty hot right now. So let's see what.
And I mean, look at. I mean, a perfect example is look at what Skid Row did, right? They got Lizzie Hale to come and sing with them, right? But Hailstorm is awesome.
Lay, I don't know how to pronounce your name, but I think you're absolutely right there
Ross
too.
Slayers.
If they would have picked a guy to try to fill in, there might have been an even bigger backlash. Because either it would have been an impersonator that people would say, nah, not cutting it, or another one that would be like, no, this is not it. So it's better to do like a vastly different choice in that sense from a marketing perspective, and if they don't want to be a cover band of themselves and want to move forward and keep doing music.
Yeah, and we said it before, right? How many artists are willing to leave their band to join Linkin Park because they might have filled the shoes, right? Very few of them would have been able to do that, right? I don't think there would have been many vocalists that would have been able to do what Chester was able to do. When you listen to him really sing, he was mainly known for Linkin Park, right? But you look at his other band, right? Dead by Sunset. Awesome, right? That was a completely different version of Chester, though. That was a hard rock kind of melodic thing. What he did with Stone Temple Pilots was unbelievable. When Scott Weiland passed away, they wanted Chester to be their singer. He was fantastic in STP. They wrote some of the best songs with him singing. And nothing against Scott Weiland, but it just shows you the talent that Chester had. He was a
I've
very,
played
very good
against
singer.
Scott Weiland, but
You know,
but a different topic, different day. Sorry.
so, Chester had a very wide range of vocal ability. And he kind of got submersed in the screaming of Linkin Park. But his voice was very, very good. He was very talented.
Yeah, and there's no disputing that, right? So again, it was the trend was happening to choose a female singer, and it also sort of got him out of that band of, no, we're obviously not trying to get a Chester sound alike,
Right.
very sending a very clear message that way. Now we can talk about the actual choice they made about who the
Thank you,
female
Sylvia.
singer was and all that stuff.
Right. And that could be argued back and forth, right? Because you're not going to ever find the perfect singer to replace a guy or a girl in a band that was their voice, right? Chester was the voice of Linkin Park. Nothing against Mike Shinoda, but Chester was that band, right? Like that's what people resonated with when you say Linkin Park, you say Chester. You don't say the other band, the other musicians in the band, right? And I think that's kind of like where you have a band. I'll say Soundgarden, right? You can't replace Chris Cornell with anybody on the planet. He had the best voice. He was one of the best singers in metal and hard rock. How do you replace Chris Cornell? There's nobody on the planet that can sing like him. So Soundgarden either has to go a completely different direction with a completely different singer and not say it's Soundgarden, or you basically have to fold is what they did. They said, listen, we're going to honor his memory. We're not going to play anymore.
Yeah, except that now they're going to, but under a different name, though.
Yeah, but that's fine, right? I have no problem with having the three guys from Soundgarden find a different singer and call it, Music Finest or something like that, right? It's what it is, but they're not replacing Chris and Soundgarden. They're just moving in a different direction, right? And I think that's what they need to do.
Yeah, no, I think that they were going to play Soundgarden tunes, the remaining guys with a different singer, but under a different name.
Yeah, and that's and again,
Snake something, I forget.
Yeah, you're gonna
Snake Pit. No.
Yeah, and you're gonna find that, right? Because if you have the three guys from Soundgarden, you're gonna want to hear Soundgarden songs because they were the band behind that, right? It doesn't necessarily matter who's singing it. I think that it's just kind of the memory that's there, and no one's ever gonna replace Chris Cornell. Let's face it. There's not a singer in the world that can do what he was able to do. But if some guy can just kind of carry the tune with it, right, and kind of go along with it and make it, seem like it's okay, then that's what you're going to have. And I'm fine with that because they're not replacing Chris, and they never can.
Yeah. No, but so obviously now we're things are going is that, the female fronted bands are getting notoriety and female singers are getting their name
Deservedly so, because they're
deservedly so.
very, very talented, right? Like, you can't take anything away from a female voice. It's just powerful. There's something soulful about it, right? They sing with a different kind of tone to them. And, again, I'm kind of getting away from the metal scene here, but I mean, look at your Celine Dion's and your Mariah Carey's. There's something about their voices. Whitney Houston, right? They can carry it better. They're more pronounced than guys. And it's just, and again, I'll go to opera, right? When you take your better male opera singers, for example, Phantom of the Opera, right? When they were doing that with Michael, Crawford. Mm-hmm. Sarah Brightman was awesome. She made a rock album. It is fantastic. Her voice was incredible.
Yeah.
And not many people know that. After she left Phantom, she started a rock band.
Yeah.
A metal band.
Yeah. No, I did know that. It's been a long time since I heard it, because I know it was a while ago. But I mean, Yeah, and when you think about it, if she would have been the singer for Evanescence, it would have been even better, perhaps. Whatever, right? So that could be argued. So it's really awesome that it's on the uptick, and excuses are running out for females to not join metal bands. It will be different. Not always, right? I mean, we talked about Arch Enemy, where it's like the screaming is very, very similar. It's hard to tell the difference, right?
Yeah.
But it's still perhaps a different sensitivity. So different but the same, as in moving things forward.
And the one thing I like about it now is that it's not shock culture anymore, right? Like, you don't have a female singing because you want to shock somebody or you want eyes on you. It's because they deserve to be in the band, because they're that talented, they're that good, they have that voice, and that's why you want them there, right? You don't want to take the hot girl who can't sing but put her in the band because you want people to look at the hot girl. That's only going to get you so far. You actually have to have somebody that is a powerful vocalist, and I think that, like, looks aside, they're going after voices now, right? Because these girls can sing. They're incredibly talented.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, and I mean, it sounds a bit trite now too. Then it's either that we say female-fronted bands, perhaps, which I don't have a problem with saying, because I think it's highlighting something, encouraging, promoting something for the sake of the good of it, and not as marketed as a novelty. So I don't have a problem with saying female-fronted, but then there are all-female bands too, right?
Right, and again, look at not metal per se, but look at country music. Country music let females be a part of their culture for decades, from Loretta Lynn to Dolly Parton to all these famous. I mean, look
50-50 pretty much.
Yeah, right? It's been incredible, right? Like, and a lot of the girls that sing country are better than the guys. They write the catchier songs.
Right.
And they sing better.
Dolly, Loretta, and
Jody Messina comes to mind, right? Jody Messina wrote a ton of good songs, and she is a phenomenal vocalist, but people wanted to see her because she actually sings. And you look at kind of the cross genre of that is like Wilson Phillips, right? They wrote pop songs, they wrote grass songs, they wrote country songs. They were very grassrooty in their stuff, right? They just happen to be very talented musicians.
Yeah. Well, and Carole King comes to mind too. That she was just a songwriter. Then people found out that she actually could sing, and she became an artist herself. But yeah, so now we just have to sort of now we know women can sing in metal, and it's great. Like, it's not non-negotiable. It's not an issue anymore.
Right.
So get in there and do it. So now we just have to, I know the Baroness have a female guitar player, for example, or whatever, right? I think that is the next step too. Like, when you talk about drummers, best metal drummers ever, right? There's not a single female on that list. And I'm sure, because I've seen a lot of, the TikTok drummers or whatever, right? There's a ton of amazing drummers and stuff there too. So it's like, now we have to sort of open ourselves up to all the other positions in a band too, to acknowledge the talent on the same level of measure or whatever, right? And just acknowledge that a bit more too.
Yeah, and I think that too with females, especially in the metal scene, right? You have to have that certain look. You have to have that like edginess to you, right? And you think of how many females that sing that could dominate a metal band, right, and do very well, but they have to project that image out, right? And I'm not saying you have to wear the tight short shorts and the death metal shirt and the collar, but that's what people are kind of looking for, right? Orianthi is great.
My gosh,
who's the girl that plays with Alice Cooper? The blonde. Damn it, I can't think of her name.
I think that's Orianthi, right?
No. Orianthi is
But
I can't-
she's been playing with like Michael Jackson and all that.
Yeah, she plays with
the
everybody.
big ones.
But Alice Cooper has a blonde guitarist who's awesome, and she is one. Now it's killing me. I gotta find. I got.
Okay. Yeah, no, but yeah, Lai, you're totally right. I love Baroness and
Nita Strauss.
you know, okay,
Nita
there we
Strauss.
go.
Yes, Ellie. Yeah.
Ali was on it. Ali, we don't need to do this podcast. We can just sort of like, okay, we're doing the pod called Ali,
Yeah.
you go. And
You know,
me and Mark will just sit here and try to look okay. Anyway, yeah, so Baroness, I know that their guitar player joined after they had a bus accident, and some people didn't return to the band, so that was one of the hires. Kudos to them for that. There's one of my favorite bands is Kylesa. I love Kylesa. They're kind of like a heavy, almost sludgy, almost but they're in the same wheelhouse as Baroness, I think.
Now I will give a shout out
and guitar player. And the riffage is just
Now the band that I saw that really impressed me with a female singer was Unleash the Archers. Brittany Slays is amazing. They are fantastic. Unleash the Archers is one of the better bands that I've seen in a very, very long time. Just the way they dominated the stage, they were incredible. Raven Black is another one. They're kind of a hard rock, heavy metal, kind of Manson style with the female singer. They were really good. I'm trying to think of. I saw the other band that opened for them too was really good. Molly's their singer. They were very, very good, very edgy and hardcore. Really cool band. They were awesome. But Unleash the Archers was fantastic.
Yeah. So I mean, whatever has been proven to be true for vocals, I'm sure it's true for whatever other instrument there is, and I'm looking forward to like seeing the first greatest drummer in metal is
Living Dead.
Diana Watts. I don't know. I just came up with a name. I don't. There is no such person. I don't think. But see what I mean, though, right? That there will be a name recognized, bass player, drummer, guitar player, whatever, right? That's going to be on the cover of one of the industry magazines. Or whatever, right?
And the thing is that like I hate when bands, and we've said it earlier, when they're searching for the next big thing, right? And it's like, you don't need to do that. Search for what you want to play and what you feel, right? And that's the thing, right? A lot of these bands are like trying to do stuff, especially in this new hardcore metalcore subgenre of the djent movement, right? Where it's like they're trying to play the reverse technique. And they're trying to figure out what Meshuggah did and how they sound the way that they did and how Decapitated sounded. How did they get to be so fast and so precise? What tools were they using to sound that great, even live? Like, when you hear Decapitated live, it sounds like an album. They're playing hardcore death metal, which is hard to do without programming and audio track, and they do it live unbelievably well. And I think a lot of these bands now are just starting to figure out, like, how do we do this, right? And I think you have bands that have proven perfection. Killswitch Engage comes to mind, right? When you watch Killswitch Engage, they are precise. They don't make mistakes. They're unbelievable.
Yeah. No, and I am 100% sure that it's not a gender thing, right?
It can't be.
So what's good about the female fronted thing is, the breaking down of the barriers, right? It's like, and it follows the spirit of the community as we know it, as in, it's all inclusive, come as you are. I don't care,
Thanks,
what your gender is or whatever, right? If you're into this thing, then that's cool, right? But the thing is that whenever there's underrepresentation, there's hesitation, especially from more powerful people to be able to break through, right? There are gatekeepers for sure. And if you're the first or the second, you have to work so much harder. You have to be so much better to get noticed for people to take that chance and to say yes. Like I cannot ignore this, right?
Right.
I'm hoping. Well, and that can be scary too, right? It's like I have this passion, I really want to do this, but I don't have that energy to be a trailblazer. Like just the thought of having to be a trailblazer can be intimidating to people too. It's like, yeah, no, I don't give a shit. I'm just gonna play in a garage band and be cool with that, right?
And that's the thing, right?
But I'm hoping that boundary has been crossed, so it doesn't have to feel like if you're female, it's like. But I have to work so much harder than the guys in order to be able to make it. I'm hoping that's totally disappearing in it because it should not be true, right?
And I think a lot of,
It's been proven.
especially in the metal community, people are willing to keep a much more open mind. They're open to the idea of you want the best person for the job. You don't want the person who's going to look good but can't play or sing. You want the person that's going to do both, right? If they happen to look good, guy or girl, and they can play their instrument or they can sing, that's what people want. They want to hear the music. They're not looking at it. They want to hear it.
Yes, I think you're absolutely right. Very few in the more extreme metal scene, at least, they don't go to a show to look at an ass.
No.
It's not about that. I mean, if anything,
And I remember
the novelty of female could be that just because we're not very used to a female perspective, female visuals to go with the music that we all like, right?
So I remember there's two artists that come to mind when like girls would look at them and be like, wow. The first one was Morbid Angel when Eric Rutan joined the band. Eric Rutan's a good looking dude, right? You can't take that away from him. He's got that hard jaw line. I mean, he looks like a linebacker. If you were to put him in the NFL, he'd put pads on and he'd dominate. And the other guy was Brian from Immolation. Dude looks like he's just chiseled. Like he looks like a good looking Glenn Danzig.
I would also say that Glenn Benton in his prime was not a bad looking dude either, really.
Yeah.
I mean,
Peter Steele,
take away the branded upside down cross on his forehead. But yeah, no, I mean, I'm sure that there was some appeal to, but but rather than the face or body to look at, I think it was also the machismo that some.
But that was the thing, right?
Some women find attractive, right? Just like, ooh, this is so manly, and it's attractive to some, right?
But that's the thing, though, right? It's kind of the subgenre where people don't really get noticed, right? I remember, Peter Steele was kind of the first guy that was like the model looking guy that just happened to be in a heavy metal band, right? He was kind of the notoriety one. But you had guys like, back in the day when you looked at Mike Manowar, right? You have four dudes that are incredibly chiseled that play good music, right? These guys were like models with instruments, right? They were like the guys, right?
But that was an old punk band too, right? A couple of them used to be in a punk band called the Dictators, that had like a wrestling theme going on or whatever. So they were turning themselves into a cartoon. Yeah. So the fact that they got swollen and stuff was just part of like we want to be a character.
But it's just funny because
but it is funny because
they rocked their sex appeal though, right? Because they went from wearing jeans and t-shirts to loincloths because they looked awesome.
Because also it was funny, and they were making fun of metal at the same time. Let's face it. But yeah, there was something I was going to say, but I forget now. Peter Steele. He was also one that knew that part of it, and he was totally milking it. And I mean, that's a guy that also had a number of semi-successful or failed bands, so he kind of honed in on what would work or whatever, right? So he totally milked that, but he had that a certain magnetism too, right? That was maybe not entirely appearance based, I mean, fine, he was a good-looking guy, but he was, I think it was more the personal magnetism. He was like less that, like
Yeah.
why would you
Yeah.
ever be attracted to a
Right.
vampire? Well, look at Peter Steele and you have your answer, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
That sort of thing. So,
And I think a lot of those guys kind of took the ideology of the glam rock thing, right? Because you had your Vince Neils, your Sebastian Bachs, even Axl Rose, right, was an icon, in terms of like guys that were on covers of magazines, right? Like you could take Janie Lane from Warrant and put him on any model magazine, he'd look awesome, right? He just had that look. Bret Michaels was another one, right? He's almost 60 now. He still looks like he's 25.
yeah. No, I mean it's a little bit, that was also part of the aggravating part for guys like me, right? I was the unattractive punk guy, and it's like, but I'm a nice dude. And then there's the asshole of a metal guy like Vince Neil or whatever, right? It's just a freaking boob, and it's just mistreating people. But no, I like the bad boys. It's like,
Right.
ladies, I don't understand you people.
And you know what though?
When you're a teenager,
And you know
but
what's
they-
funny is because that's why I love the Ramones, right? Because they were kind of the nerdy, dorky, uncool kids that became cool. And that's why everybody loves the Ramones, right? Because they weren't the best looking band. They were kind of sloppy. They were kind of, they did their own thing. But I mean, Joey Ramone became a rock icon, and he's not the most handsome, dapper looking guy in the world. And it just like, that's why I love the Ramones, because not the music should never be about looks. It should be about the music, right? And the Ramones wrote awesome songs. They were catchy and fast and punky and rock, and they were like everything you'd want to have a band to be, but they weren't the best looking four dudes, but they made it, right? And that's what, I think they were the anti-establishment, because you look at all those 80s bands, right? All the bands in the 80s, it wasn't about the music, it was about the look. You could take four good looking dudes and put instruments on them. Nobody cared about the music, right? It was just how they looked on stage, where it was like the punk was like, it didn't matter how you looked, it was about the music, right? The energy behind it. And I think that's where, grunge kind of melded the two, right? Because you took the glam out of it, but you took the music, right? Because there's no doubt when you look at the Melvins and Mudhoney and, bands like early Temple of the Dog, right? And bands that started before their breakout.
Green River.
It wasn't about
Coffee
the
Break,
look.
yeah.
It was about the sound. They all created great music, right? And that's kind of the thing that grunge kind of melded that together. It wasn't so much about the look, it was about the music. Where the 80s glam was more about the look. Music was secondary.
Yeah, I'm gonna do a yes and that is a little bit of a disagreement, because the visual, even for the Ramones, has been a very important element, right? Because you do relate to the visuals. So the yes and here is that you don't have to be good looking, but the visuals still need to be there. I mean, anybody who was a Ramones fan wanted to have that same motorcycle jacket and wanted to have, the jeans stripped at the knees and all that stuff, right? So the visuals, the look is still important as part of the image of what it is they're trying to do, but it should complement the music. And let's, so what I was saying, what I saw last weekend, right? Antania, that was even though it was a super tiny stage, right? It was a highly visual experience, and it complemented the performance and the music really well. So it became a whole. I probably wouldn't have been as impressed by them if they were standing there in a white T-shirt and a pair of blue jeans, right?
Sure.
So I do think that appearance do matter. I'm not going to dismiss that entirely. But, do you have to be good looking? No.
Yeah,
Right?
and it's
that
not.
shouldn't be part of it.
Yeah, and I don't. When I say look, I didn't mean about the look of the person. I meant the look of the image, right? Because when you look at the grunge scene, right, and you look at those outfits, that was flannel and jeans and leather jackets, right? It was comfy clothes. It wasn't the spandex that stick to your nuts that you had to sweat through and be uncomfortable because it looked cool. Grunge was
Right.
comfort, right? Grunge was laid back. That's what like made it so
That's
appealing.
exactly it. It was the moment when I thought grunge was dead was the moment when I saw grunge fashion, the
Right.
term grunge fashion. It's like, okay, so now it's gone.
Yeah.
It's gonna, or
It's
it's
I
moved
can't be
out of-
comfortable wearing my flannel and my
It's-
hoodie and my
it's-
jeans
it's-
anymore because now it's not cool.
When Karl Lagerfeld is doing, a wrapped up flannel shirt around
Yeah.
someone's hips, then it's like, okay, so it's moved away from my world now. I have to find
Yeah.
something else.
And I'll tell you what, right?
Right.
Going to a metal concert in the mid 90s to the early 2000s was the most uncomfortable thing, right? Because look at the outfits that those guys wore, right? Wallet chains that are heavy as shit, right? Because they looked cool, right? And like going to a concert wearing a 3-pound chain on your hip is not comfortable. It's terrible, but we all did it. We all wore it. And think
I was not one of them. I even back then, I was
man,
like, what?
I had.
Like, are you that afraid that someone's going to steal your wallet? Like,
I
what
had,
the hell?
but it was just the look, right? It was like the Zach Wild cool
I
look,
know,
right?
but it's like, but why?
Man, I had the boots. I had a pair of Doc Martin boots that weighed about 4 pounds. They were heavy. They were just super heavy boots, big soles, chunky, super uncomfortable, but looked cool. Wore jeans
Right.
with the wallet chain, right? And I didn't have the thin wallet chain. I had the thick one, right? The heavy one, right? Wore that. Wore a either a flannel shirt or like a cutoff with either a jean jacket or a leather jacket, right? So leather jackets aren't light. They weigh a few pounds, right?
Yeah.
Probably 8 or 9. So when you took my outfit apart, I probably had 20 to 30 pounds worth of clothing, not including what I had on just normally, right? Those were all accessories. So going to a show to look cool was terrible because it was freaking heavy and hot, and it was like, but you did it, right? That's what you did, and that's kind of like what I like now about like modern metal is that you wear a pair of cutoff shorts, you wear a t-shirt and a hat, and you're comfy, right? It's cool to do that now. Where back in the day, you dressed the part to be cool, but man, it was a lot of work.
Yeah, and the comment that I just made that I didn't do the chain thing or whatever, right? That doesn't mean that I want to be dismissive, because I mean, I did a post about that too. It's like, make fun of the ladies too, like how long they take to get ready to go out. But it's like going to a show. It's like, man, what t-shirt? I have a stack of 50 t-shirts. Which one do I Metallica? No, this is not the time to do that. Cannibal Corpse still too mainstream. Whatever, right?
I gotta say,
see
that's
what
what
I'm
I
saying,
love.
right? So I was still, even back then, it was still like, how do I fit in but send a message that I'm original enough?
And I will say this. That is what I loved about Chris Barnes from Cannibal Corpse, and it's what I loved about Phil Anselmo from Pantera. Chris Barnes wore cut off, he got pants and he cut them at the knee, and all the frays were stringing. He wore Converse, and he'd wear some weird, obnoxious death metal shirt, and he had his long braids and his dreads, and that's what he sang in. And Phil Anselmo started doing the same thing: cut off shorts, Chuck Taylors, and a black metal shirt. And that made it comfortable for the rest of the people that wanted to look like them. And because all it was you went and got your Dark Throne shirt or your Mayhem shirt, you got some cargo shorts, and you got some Chuck Taylors. Easy peasy, lightweight, comfy, killed it.
Yeah, totally. Yeah,
was
no,
awesome.
it doesn't make it easy, and it hasn't changed much over the years. Let's face it. I'm glad that the chain is gone, but other than the chain, it's still pretty similar. Like from the early '90s till now, what going to a metal show looks like.
And that's what I don't understand. Like, I love, like, don't get me wrong, I love the black metal look, right? But can you imagine those guys on stage with leather trench coats and those gauntlet spikes? Like, they can't be comfortable. There's no way that's comfortable. Wearing a 4-pound spiked gauntlet on your forearm, trying to play for 2 hours is not easy. It's
I
hard
know.
to do that.
It's like, I remember. Yeah, I remember as a young teenager saying, like, I had seen Rob Halford and all that with the leather and the rivets and all that shit, and then you see Kerry King. It's like, wait, are those like 3-inch long nails that he's got, and it goes halfway up? Like, how can you play a guitar with, like, like,
Yeah.
I'll be worried,
Yeah.
like, if I take 2 steps to the side too far, then I'm going to poke someone or myself, or,
I don't know how those guys.
and that is nothing compared to what some are doing today, right?
No,
It's like,
and it was funny because like I look back at like those
wielding
old,
fire swords and shit.
right,
Yeah.
and I look back at like those old Gorgoroth videos, right, where they're in like leather boots, pants, top, trench coat, spikes, chains, like that stuff's got to be heavy, and here they are playing in 100-degree heat in some festival in Europe somewhere. Can't be comfy, right? That's a lot of sweat. That's a lot of weight loss playing.
It's commitment. Let's put it
It's
that way,
something.
So I don't want to judge them for it. All the power to them. That's their image.
No,
and
I give
they
them credit
do
for
it,
it.
and they suffer for their art. I'm sure. So what goes around comes around. I think.
Yeah.
If that's what you're committing to, you got to live with it.
It's it, right? That's
all the power to you. But I mean, it's the same thing. I think with the really elaborate 80s shows, like Iron Maiden or like Alice Cooper or whatever, right? That was heavily dependent on mechanics, Motley Crue doing the spinny thing, right? It's still like, there are so many things that can go wrong for the sake of image.
Sure. I mean, again, not to discredit what they've done or what, but I mean, can you imagine Rammstein playing in a flame engulfed stage where it's got to be 1,000 degrees? I mean, these guys are right next to pyro all night long. They're shooting fire for 2 hours.
Yeah.
I couldn't imagine how like hot that has to be. And doing it night after night after night for years, right? It's not like they took a break at all. It was how much more pyro can we get? How much bigger can the flames be? How much louder could the bangs be?
Well, that was his day job, right? The singer, I forget his name, but that was his day job before, like, to be a pyrotechnician.
Yeah.
So he knows what he's doing. But yeah, no, much easier to get a hot chick on stage and go and just leave it at that. No, I'm kidding. That was a joke. That was a bad joke.
Right.
But yeah.
Yeah, and I think getting back to like our initial topic of like the female fronted singers, like we said before, I think that the metal community has a more open mind about this, and I think they've accepted the idea that females can actually sing and that they're not just there for their looks. And I really think that the females have done a fantastic job of being ambassadors for fronting bands because they carry it well, right? They give good interviews. They dress the part, they talk the part, they act the part, and they feel it, right? Their job is to be a singer in a band, right? They're the front person of the band. They're the mouthpiece and the vocal instrument of that band. And I think they've done a great job of carrying that torch and inspiring more young girls to get involved in the hardcore, hard rock, heavy metal community. Whereas like it's so much easier for teenage girls to follow Taylor Swift because that's the cool thing to do, when you're in high school. And as much credit as I give to the guy for doing it, but Marilyn Manson attracted a huge female audience. When you would go see his shows, it was 50% women, 50% men, and it wasn't just the girlfriends going to a metal show because their boyfriends wanted to go. The females wanted to be there, and I give him a mad amount of credit for that because he never exiled them. He always included them in the community, and it was such a cool thing to see.
Yeah, but I do want to say too, I want to add on to what you were saying is that, not only do they carry themselves and all that stuff, right? But they do it without giving up any of their femininity or what, like it's not like they're trying to be guys in a guy world,
And I mean, let's face it,
which is part of what you were saying. The community is all about that. Like if you want to be part of the community and you're feeling all this is the music, this is the imagery, this is the culture type of thing, don't give a shit.
Right. And I will say this, women are nurturers by nature, right? They are much more easily to approach. They're much more likely to sign autographs, take pictures. They're much nicer when you ask them questions. They don't give you the asshole ignorant answer that most guys will give you. They're not derogatory. They're just much more approachable. And like I said, when I met Angela, she was one of the nicest musicians I had ever met, guy or girl. they were just very welcoming. The whole band, I mean, Arch Enemy is a band. We're just nice people. They were just good humans, right?
Yeah.
They were accommodating to everybody. They signed, they took pictures. They didn't exile themselves. They didn't cut it off saying, oh, we're only going to deal with the first 500. They waited for until everybody got their pictures, and they were super nice about it. They were, you know, and I remember the Amet brothers, right? The Michael and Jeff Amat. They were incredible. They were like, no, come on, to come take a picture. Don't be like shy. Don't be, come on. And they were like inviting. Like, how many metal bands do that, right? Most metal bands are like, we just want to get the hell out of here. We want to get back on our bus. We want to start drinking. We want to start, like, they were just awesome. They were a great band, but they were incredible humans. They were one of my favorite bands, and they still are to this day. And I give them all the credit in the world. And another band I've mentioned it 1,000 times is Jackal's like that, right? Jackal will wait till the very last person in the crowd, whether it's an hour later or an hour and a half later, until they get their hand shooken and their picture taken. That's when Jackal leaves. They're they're good dudes, right? They're good humans. And I just feel that like a lot of the female bands, like the female fronted bands that are out there, just kind of have that willingness to want their fans to be involved with what they're doing. And they take the time to show their appreciation to the people who are buying their albums and buying their merchandise, right? They're not jerks to them. And you know, and that's what, like, I know, you know, Slayer always got a bad rap, and Metallica always got a bad rap for doing that. Not wanting to sign autographs, not wanting to, you know, take pictures, not wanting to, paying for meet and greets and stuff like that. It's like, people just paid $100 to see you, and now you're going to charge them another $100 to get a picture?
Yeah. No, I have opinions on that, and some of it is that, you know, if you leave it all on the stage and you're totally done after every gig, you know, taking pictures with fans for another hour and a half might be detrimental to next show's performance. Maybe, you know, so I'm not going to totally knock that entirely, but I'm totally with you that, you know, a band, and I think metal bands are generally good at this, is to acknowledge the fact that we are here because of the community, because of the fans, and we will take time to do that. I think that when you get to a certain level, in Arch Enemy, obviously, you know, when they got to the level they were at, they still maintained that attitude. But some bands are like, you know, I just
and don't get me wrong, right?
You know, the wrong things have happened too many times.
You can't go to a festival with 100,000 people and expect to meet every single one of them. It's just impossible, right? So time and place, right? Milwaukee Metal Fest was a smaller venue. There was probably about 3,000 people, maybe 4,000 the entire weekend. So if you took a 10% of that, that's 300 people, right? So you're not talking about 30,000 people trying to get their picture taken with Arch Enemy, right? It was maybe a couple hundred people, but they were just nice to those people. They didn't rush them. They didn't make them pay for anything. They signed anything you had, the CDs. They signed, if you had a portrait or a print, they didn't make you buy anything to get a picture with them. They were very inviting. And like I said, those pictures we took were on old cameras, disposable cameras, right? We didn't have cell phones back then. Those predated anything of that nature, right?
Yeah.
You either had a camcorder where you recorded it, or you had disposable cameras, and that's what we took. Got all these pictures developed at Walgreens or Walmart, and had them put in an album. And I just took, when I got my cell phone, I took pictures from them that way. But I mean, I still have the original prints in my photo album.
Awesome. Yeah. No, I mean, but so I mean, I with that, I just wanted to say that sometimes I have to respect the artist, because it could be personality wise, it could be energy wise, it could be for whatever reason that they are not doing that same thing. But to your point, the bands that do make a difference, like that made a difference in terms of your fandom for Arch Enemy and your attitude for that, and maybe for even towards female fronted bands forever. It's like, you know, like, yeah, you know, or whatever, right?
And I've met some really,
it really does make a bigger difference. Well, yeah, after you go see Slayer, but you didn't get to take a picture with them afterwards, it's like, that was a good show.
Right.
You know?
And there are certain,
oh my God, I got a picture with Slayer.
Right. And there's certain musicians that just put themselves out there. And I've said this before, and I think I've mentioned it several times, but like one of the coolest musicians out there, as far as taking pictures and signing autographs and being one with their fans, is Rob Zombie. He does it all the time. Even if he charges $20, he's not one of those guys that is like, well, you pay $20, now you have to pay $10 for an 8x10. You have to pay $10 for a CD, and anything that I sign, you buy. Rob Zombie signs everything, takes pictures with everybody. He's like one of the coolest laid back rock stars. And the guy's he's a multimillionaire, right? Rob Zombie's worth like 30 million bucks, yet he signs everything for his fans, takes pictures, jokes around, makes like, he's just a fun dude to be around. And it's like, that would be a kind of guy that if you saw him at a bar, you would hang out with him, right? He'd be like, oh, you're a metal, you're my fan, come and sit with me, right? He's that kind of guy. And not many rock stars are like that. They isolate themselves because they don't want to be that way. Rob Zombie is totally that way. And that's what I love about him, right? And that's what I like about Jackal and the other bands that I mentioned. They were just very welcoming, and they always are. And Jesse, you'll see him walk around before the show, and he'll walk up to you and say, hey, do you want a picture?
Yeah. No, I mean, you know, I admire that so much. Again, I'm not advocating for the opposite. I totally prefer
No,
that.
and I'm not either.
Say,
But let's face it.
but it's also, you know, there can be, you know, once you're out there and you play a lot and you meet a lot of fans, some people can become very uncomfortable to deal with, or you can have a number of bad experiences that are close calls, whatever they may be. And it's like, yeah, no, I don't want to put myself in that situation anymore. So in that case, I'll just cut everything off.
Right. And it's size of venue, right? Like, let's face it. If you're playing the Allstate Arena and you're playing in front of 30,000 people, you're not going to do a meet and greet because there's no way 30,000 people, you'd be there all night. You can't do it.
Right.
But if you play a venue where there's 500 people and you say, hey, I'm going to meet you guys on the side of the stage, come and take a picture and hang out. It happens a lot at the Forge, right? The Forge holds 1,000 people tops. So, I mean, you're not going to get 12,000 or 13,000 people at the Forge. You're just not going to. So for a band to say, come and hang out with us afterwards and stay with us is easy because you know you're going to get done in an hour, right? And the fans are going to appreciate it. You're going to make an imprint on their mind.
That's another reason why I have been to very, very few arena shows. You know, the Forge is also almost like, or the Metro would be like, I don't know if I want to go to a bigger place than this,
Right.
Because then it starts to feel like, you know, it's not so personal anymore. All right. So yeah, I'm totally with you on all of that. You know, you know, and pretty much all of these shows, even when Blood Incantation were at the Metro the other week, I had a buddy that went. I think it was Oceans of Slumber that were playing at the same time too, that opened for it, and he went there for them, and just spotted them sitting in the bar. So he just, you know, he went up to a member that was at the bar before the show started, and you know, started talking, and it was totally cool. And that was like, yeah, I'm just hanging with this dude in my favorite band, you know. It's, you know, as if you can stay approachable and not get hurt too much by the few bad eggs, and I think you go a long way. But I think you're right too, that women unfortunately need to have a sense of safety around them, so they have to identify like what is the situation that I feel safe placing myself in order to, you know, return you know, that the sentiment, right? So
Right, and I think with especially with like women in bands, right? You have to respect the fact that they're still a female, right? They're not going to change in front of you. They're not going to do the things like, you know, if you're in a band and you're a female and you have 5 male band members, right? Are you going to be the one drinking beers and belching and like, you know, there has to be some kind of level of respect that you would still have towards the female. And I'm not saying they can't be one of the guys. But at the same time, there has to be that level of respect that you have for male-female relationships, right? It's just part of the gig. And I think that band members would probably be more protective of the female in the band than they would be otherwise.
Yeah, and I'm not trying to say either that women are weak or whatever, right?
No, not at all.
But it is very, very true that many women have experienced some sort of abuse or misbehavior by by males. So there's often justifiably more of a protective shield that
Sure.
guys sometimes don't understand.
But I love the fact though that
So-
like women in music, especially throughout the history of music, how they invite other women to be a part of what they're doing, I think is something really special that a lot of guys don't do that, right? Because if you've made it big in a band, you don't want other guys to be more popular than you because you want to be the guys. You don't want to have the youngsters following your footsteps because you don't want to be overtaken by them. Where I think like the females are just welcoming, right? They want other females to be a part of what they're doing. They want the younger generation to follow in their footsteps. You encourage women to start playing music and to sing and to be, to be the front person in a band, right? Where I think guys kind of have that ego where they can't check it. Like they don't want the younger bands to come up because they know that they're going to be replaced. Where women are like, no, here's the torch. Take it, please carry it for the next generation. And I think guys just have that weird kind of macho attitude that like they don't want that. They don't want the younger generation to come up and learn from them and emulate them and be better than them. They want to hold them back because they still want to be number one.
It is a very masculine. I mean, let's not deny it. It is a very masculine type of music and a very masculine type of culture. This is true, but that doesn't mean that just because you're a guy that you need to be a dick, right? Like
Correct.
don't be a dick. Realize that being in the it's macho enough as it is. You don't have to
And
feel.
be
You
blessed
don't have
that
to
you were
throw fuel on
afforded
the
the
fire.
opportunity
That
to
way,
do
we're all here for the same culture, and we're all
Right.
part of the same deal. So there
And
is
that's
no
the attitude, right?
reason
I think
to be more of a dick.
with most people is that if you're a good human being and you have a good sense of what you've accomplished, you want other people to follow in your footsteps. You want to show them the path to what you've done. This is what I did, right? And I think that when you have bands especially that understand that and want to pass the torch and want to show people what to do, right? That's what I loved about Dime. That's what I love about Zach Wild. They show you exactly what they're doing. They don't hide anything. They don't say, well, I'm not going to show you the scales I play on. I'm not going to show you the pedals I use. I'm not going to show you what my tricks. They're open about it. They're like, learn from me. This is what I do. This is what I use. This is how I play. This is how I tune my guitar. These are the pedals I use. These are the amps I use. This is what. And Dime was awesome about doing that, right? Because he wanted the young kid to pick up the guitar. He remembered being a fan of Ace Frehley. And Ace was like that, right? Ace was like, I want kids to be the next generation of Kiss. And he influenced a ton of people. And I just hate it when musicians are like secretive about it. And that's what I kind of I never really liked that about like Satriani and Vi. They were very secretive of what they did. Now that they're older and a little bit more mature and a little bit more wiser, they're more open to say, this is what I did. But when they were in their youths, they didn't share anything. They found the technique and it was their secret. They never shared it with the world. And they would hire guitar techs and swear them to secrecy that they wouldn't let the cat out of the bag.
Yeah. No, that's very true. I think another thing that makes it a little bit easier for excluding the dicks of the metal world, because there are definitely
Sure.
assholes in this.
They're
Oh, it's a large scene, so they're everywhere. But I think, in my experience, that most of the fans are coming from a bit of an outsider type thing. Like, I didn't have many friends when I was growing up, or I've struggled in school, or very few people born with a silver spoon in the metal scene, I think. Or the ones that were brought up in a way where it's like, people are essentially equal, right? It's not an entitlement culture, right? Which is also why I feel like I'm a little bit surprised that it's taken this long for females to become as prominent as they're starting to be now.
Yeah. And I don't think it's.
I think that
like I
comes
said,
from that.
you
Like,
look
it's not.
back-
It's there are elitists, but the elitists come more from now. Finally, I have a way of being affirming myself as knowing more about subgenres than other people, so I can tell you these things, right? So it's more of a, I didn't get to be this at any point before in my life, but now I can, and those are the dicks, just so we're clear. But other than that, just dismissing those gatekeepers and elitists, I still think that there's a deep understanding of humanity a lot of times.
I think more than ever, I think now people respect talent, and they respect the idea that people have certain degrees of skill level, and it doesn't matter if you're male, female, trans. It doesn't. They respect the fact that you can do something and that you're talented in that way. And I think now a lot of culture is embracing the fact that talented people deserve to be put on the stage. They have talent for a reason. They're there for a reason. They were picked out of hundreds of people who, practiced and tried out and auditioned. They were the best one for the job. It's not so much that, we have these 5 guys and those are the 5, right? Now the talent pool is open, and I think people are starting to accept that. It doesn't matter who you are, right? It doesn't matter what gender you are or what genre you come from. If you can do the job, you can do it. And I think, again, not that it was male or female, but I think that like Ariel Pineda was like one of those guys when he took over for Steve Perry from Journey, right? Like, he was found out of all the people in the world, right? There's 8 billion people in the world, and they found a Filipino guy that sounds exactly like him. And they said, "You want the gig?" And he said, "Yes."
Yeah.
And I don't think it mattered, right? They weren't looking for the white guy with the long hair that looked like Steve Perry. They wanted the guy that could sing like him. And it didn't matter what he looked like or what culture he was from or they wanted the voice, not the look. And I think that was huge when they did that.
Yeah. And we talked about this a little bit before too, when we talked about Linkin Park. Like, Linkin Park could have done a similar thing where it's like, maybe there's a Filipino guy, out of the 9 billion people on the planet, there's got to be one that can sing like Chester, but he's a YouTuber with 10 followers, right?
Sure.
But I just want to address something that Lai was saying here, which I think is one of those things that we need to debunk, right? She says that it's hard for females in metal due to the fact that females are expected to act a certain way and look a certain way. And I feel like that is a myth that needs to be debunked. Because as far as I know, with me and my friends that I've had, way back when, and the friends I have now, they don't care. Just be there, be yourself, be into it. And my wife is someone that can go from spending 3 hours getting ready with makeup and picking the dress and putting stuff on, to just being, I'll throw a hoodie on. I have friends that always do themselves up and putting on like skimpy clothes or whatever. That's part of the deal of what they want to do when they go to a show. That's not an expectation. That's a personal choice by that particular woman to do. When I go to shows, there's usually fewer women there than there are men, obviously, but I would say that there are just as many women that are just there with straight hair, minimal makeup, and a band T-shirt, just like a guy would dress, and nobody gives it a second thought. So I do think that perception is a bit of a myth, and that's up to us in the scene. I
think what Leigh was saying,
that's part of why I want to bring this up too, right?
I think she wasn't meaning so much the look. I think she was meaning the expectation of a female and how they have to behave or how they have to act or how they have to be in a band where I think like a lot of the
Oh, in the
modern
band. Okay,
players
gotcha.
now, I think have that ideology that it doesn't matter. You carry yourself the way you want to carry yourself, and people are going to respect that no matter what. And that's what I think the female rock stars now, especially in the metal world, do a fantastic job at carrying themselves. They have a high level of expectation for themselves, and they want to meet those expectations every time they step on stage, and it shows because they are very good at their craft. They can demand a stage presence unlike anybody else. And I think that they do a fantastic job at getting everybody in the crowd involved in what they're doing. And they carry it well. And they are, like I said, female singers are great ambassadors for what they do because they invite other women in. They want it to be a big circle of people where guys want to close it. They want to isolate themselves, where I think females want to expand. They want to branch out and let other women come in. They want to do the stuff that, they want to bring the sisterhood to it. They want to bring other females. They want to get them involved. And I think men like do the stiff arm a lot. They're like, listen, you stay in your lane. You stay in your lane. We'll stay in our lane. Where girls are like, listen, let's get the lanes together, right? Let's move in this direction.
Yeah. Yeah, thanks for clarifying that. And my apologies for misinterpreting the statement. I, to some extent, also feel like if women feel like, okay, guys, let us stay in our lane for a bit. We're getting used to this. Cool that we're here and we're all together, but we need to just make sure. I don't mean to sound overly cautious or that women are weak or whatever, right? But
No.
But I do feel like if that's the way that to ease into it, that's totally cool. But from a performance and from a band perspective, like as in female bands, female vocalists, and all that stuff, I just feel like it's kind of a non-issue anymore because it's been proven that
It works.
OTEP, ever since OTEP or Kitty or whatever, it's like, or if what's her face in Evanescence,
Emily,
yeah, they're as much rock stars as any guy would be, and maybe in some instances are better examples than most guys would be, in terms of how to carry yourself and how to behave and whatever, right? So it's more like the other side of the spectrum is like, hey guys, check out the ladies and see how they are interacting with their fans and with the press and all that stuff, and maybe you should take a page out of that book.
Yeah, and I think that, when you look especially now at the black metal genre in terms of like what they're doing with females and how they're involving them in the band and how they're getting them a part of it and how they're incorporating that kind of gothic being into that, I really think it's kind of cool because I don't want to say it's trendy and popular, but it works. And that's the thing that you hate to say it, but like when you get a female in a black metal band and she can lay over those really kind of harmonic vocals over somebody's growling and screeching, I don't know why, but it sounds good to the ear. It's like that perfect balance. And I know Cradle of Filth figured it out right away. And I know Demu's been working with it. I know Behemoth's been working with it. I know that there's a couple other bands. Wantane's been doing it now with where they've gotten the females and they wear the cloaks on stage and they kind of sing in the back. But there's just something about it that it makes it work. And it sounds good. And I think that's the most important thing now with music is that nobody cares whether or not a hardcore band has a female in the band. As long as it sounds good, you're going to listen to it. And I know that I forgot her name, something Schoolgirl is the girl that sings in Cradle of Filth. Her solo album is phenomenal. It is incredible.
Yeah, I don't know that one, but I think you're absolutely right. At the end of the day, it's about the band, the art that you put out, and it doesn't matter who it comes from, as long as it sounds good and it's the sound that you want to get out of it. You shouldn't be capitalizing on a trend.
Bullcrap, that's right.
But it's as long as it is what you want to produce, if it's the art that you want to create, and it brings you forward, then it doesn't really matter, right? So yeah, gender neutral in a sense, I guess.
Yeah,
it just doesn't matter.
And I'm happy that the barriers have been broken, right? Because it's not about male or female anymore. It's about what sounds good. And if a band with a female vocal sounds good, people are going to listen to it. And I think that was really the draw of those early 2000 bands like Arch Enemy and Lacuna Coil, where they just made it work. It sounded good. You didn't need a male singer to make it sound good. Angela did a great job, and Alyssa Glues White does a great job now with Arch Enemy. It sounds good. They don't need a female artist. They could have any guy sing, but it works for them, right? Lacuna Coil works, Spirit Box works. These bands work. That's why they do it. If it didn't sound good, they wouldn't do it. They wouldn't be popular. They wouldn't put out music, right? And there's a lot of bands where the females just didn't sound great, and they said, okay, we tried it, didn't work. But most of them work well. And when they play together and they grow up together and they're part of each other's lives, they really sound fantastic, and you can't deny that.
Yeah. No. Lacuna Coil are coming to town in May, by the way, with Machine Head and In Flames and Unearth. Yeah. So Radius, though, so that's a big place. But anyway, yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
I think that we made our point, have we?
Yeah.
Cool. All right. So, we're getting into next week being the last before, I think it's even Christmas Day, the following Thursday or whatever, right? Yeah. So we're getting pretty close here. So we might have to have a Christmas special.
Let's do that. I know we talked about it before, but we'll do the best Christmas metal albums. We'll do the ones we think are great. We'll do the ones that didn't do so well. And then we'll just make it all about the Christmas metal spectacular. Obviously, I'm sure we both have a few bands that come to mind that put out really good Christmas albums. And then there's ones that did not do so well.
That sounds good to me. Yeah, I'll try to figure out how to hook up my stuff too, so we can listen to some of the tunes at the same time too. Because
absolutely,
so awesome. Well, thank you everyone for joining and for your patience in following along to the ramblings. But
yeah, that's awesome.
Appreciate it.
And like I said earlier, guys, follow Kelly and what he's doing. If you follow me, we thank you all for the love and support. You guys are great. Thank you for the gifts. Thank you for the likes. I think we're at 11,000 likes tonight. So, I mean, it's incredible, right? Like our group rocks it. We got, awesome people. So we love you guys for the love and support. Follow me, follow Kelly. It's what we're doing. We're trying to make this thing, become successful and big eventually down the road. That's what we want to do. But we thank you guys. You guys are our original fans, and we'll never forget you guys. I say that before, like you guys are like our OGs. So, when we make it big one day, we'll never forget you guys and how we started. And we had this little show on Thursday nights that we did, and hopefully in a few years we're global phenomenons. And we'll be there. But we'll never forget you guys, and that's the point of this: is that you guys were here when it mattered the most, and this is it, starting us out. So thank you guys for the love and support. We appreciate it. We'll see you guys next Thursday at 7:30, and we'll talk metal and Christmas.
Sounds great. You guys made my week.
Sounds good,
everybody.
All right, thanks, guys. We love you, and we'll see you next Thursday.